You're listening to the Small and Supercharged podcast with Ria Freeman, episode 161. Hi and welcome to this episode of the Small and Supercharged podcast with me. It is a solo one, and this one has come from a comment I had when I was giving a online training a few weeks ago, and I was on a panel. And one question, well, we always invite questions because I love a Q&A. And one of the questions was, is email marketing dead? And I don't think I answered fast enough saying, no, it isn't. And I thought it might be quite a good one to do, a good session to do here on the podcast, about really why we need to pay more attention to our mailing lists and why, if you don't have one, really consider starting one. And if you have one and you've neglected it for a bit, and let's be honest, we've all been guilty of that from time to time, me included, hopefully it's a good excuse to have a bit of a look at it again. So one reason why people ask this question is because they think people don't open emails. People just don't open emails. You get them in your inbox and you delete them. But there's a few things I wanted to talk about around that point, really. So the first point is that if these people have given you their email address, and it's all been done the correct way, and that is really important, you need to make sure people have given the correct consent for you to contact them. You need to make sure they're happy to receive marketing or other emails from you, otherwise that is not good. You must always have an option to unsubscribe, etc, etc. I'm not a GDPR expert, but there is a huge amount of information online, and also from a lot of the email providers, they provide a lot of information, but it must be done correctly. But we're assuming that you're doing everything correctly in this podcast, otherwise it's going to be really boring for you. But when it's all done correctly, these people have actively said, yes, I would like you to contact me. Now, when we post on social media, although I absolutely, well, you know I love social, but when we post on social media, we're kind of putting our information out there, hoping people will like it, will comment, will engage with us, which is great and often very effective because we want people to, we want people who are following us to actually care about what we're talking about. Otherwise, why are they following us? One could argue. I would argue that point. So that is also effective, but let's think about it in different terms. So when we think about what's our success metric on social media, there are lots of different types, but one of the most common ones is engagement rate. And the engagement rate is where you look at all the comments, interactions, shares, all the things that happen to your post that people have given an active engagement on. So likes, comments, shares, things like that, saves, depending on what platform you're on. And then we look at that against our total number of followers, divided by 100, that's our engagement rate. Now, obviously we want our engagement rate to be as high as possible, okay? Because that means that more people, we've kind of hit the right note. And I do think it is important to keep an eye on engagement rate because you want to make sure that your post is hitting the right note. But it's also important to think about why you're doing that particular post. If you're promoting something you're offering from a business point of view, you may get lower engagement because that just tends to happen, which is very annoying, but it is often the truth. But the key is that post is likely to bring, one could argue, I would definitely argue, more valuable engagement. So if I put a post up about Mastermind, for example, it is likely to get lower engagement if I put up a nice picture of my horse. So a nice picture of a horse is likely to get a lot more likes, a lot more comments. That would be great. And if I put up a really shareable quote or a graphic, again, that is likely to get comments, shares, likes, etc, etc. Which is brilliant, which is great for helping me build my Instagram or my Facebook or whatever profile. I'm probably talking more about Instagram with the share aspect. Really, that has got its part to play. But if I put a post up about, let's say, Mastermind, I am likely, because it just is, to get lower engagement on that post. It could be I need to improve the way I'm pitching it, but I have tried a few different ways, and generally it usually gets lower engagement. But the key is that that post is much more likely to generate the action of somebody sending me a direct message to say, tell me about Mastermind, what's that all about? Which is much more likely to actually contribute towards the profit of my business. So you have to look at it in a different way. I digress. Anyway, so we look at engagement rates on social as one of the metrics of success, and I'm just going after this one now. So I've had a quick Google, because what else do you do? And looked at good engagement rates, and they do vary from platform to platform. But thinking of the ones that I do most on, from Instagram, it seems to be around 1 to 5%. That's good. Obviously, it varies up and down. So with Facebook, there's a few different numbers on here, but the ones that I have seen and looked at more, it's less than 1%. It's quite a lot less than 1% in some cases. So think about that. Do your research as well. Obviously, that these numbers change all the time depending on various different things that change on the different social media platforms. But if we're thinking that actually good on Instagram is between 1 and 5%, and good on Facebook is below 1%, and this is common information available online, that's not a massive engagement rate. Now, I really do stick with what I was saying, that not all engagement rates are created equal. They really aren't, and it's important to keep that in mind. Okay, but now if we think about what would be an active engagement on email? It will be when somebody opens your message. Of course, the next thing would be the click-through. Let's be honest, that is what we want. We want people to click through. But when we are looking at engagement rate on social, we're looking at people to do an action which shows they are consuming that content. So I know it's not like for like. I know an open rate isn't exactly the same as an engagement rate, but I think it's probably the closest, but I'm very happy to be corrected on that. So I have gone to Google and I've typed in about the average engagement rate on emails. And of course it does differ from industry to industry. So this isn't, it might be different from your industry, possibly is, but this is what I've got available in front of me now. And basically, this is from MailChimp. So again, if you want to go and have a look, you go and have a look. But they did some analysis of open rates for all industries, and it was around the 21.33, around the 21.33% mark. Now, as I said, this does vary. So apparently government-related ones have got the highest, but go and have a look at this if you want to have a look. Go and have a look and see what you can find. But I would have thought that around 21 is fair enough. And I know with my emails, if I'm sending it to like the Mastermind group, there's a much, much higher open rate there because these are people who are essentially subscribing to receive those emails. But if it's my general one, I would say it was around that. But that means that 20% of people that have given me their email address are looking at what I'm doing, are interested in what I'm saying. And more than that, again, looking at this information in front of me, the average click rate, so this is when people take that action of clicking on a link, is, they haven't done the numbers, but most of them start with a 2 on here. There's a 5%. So they probably vary, I'd say, between, I think that's the lowest, 1.4, just having a quick scan now, up to, again, this is just me quickly looking through the list to try and get the highest I can see. I've got a 4 there, I've got a 5 to 5%, let's say, unless I'm missing something obvious. So again, that's actually bigger than most engagement rates, So it's I know they're not exactly the same, but it's worth thinking, okay, if I do well on Instagram, I get 5% engagement. But with MailChimp, these people that are basically warm leads because they've given you their email for you to contact whenever you like, they're opening at over 20%. As I said, I know it's not like for like, but I do think it's quite a good measurement because we think, oh, they're dead, I just delete them. Yeah, I delete a lot of emails, and I'll be honest, I've unsubscribed to a lot over the last probably few months as well because they're ones that I'm not interested in. But when I receive one that I'm interested in, to someone's list I've signed up to something I'm going to think I'm going to learn or be inspired by or be excited by, I'll read it. Whereas I could miss them on social. You know, the way that the algorithm works means that we do not see all of the people that we follow's content each time. It would just be ridiculous, depending on how long we were on there. It'd be huge. And if you look at your reach on social, you can see that you are, most of the time, I know there are instances where content goes viral and, you get an awful lot of exposure, an awful lot of reach that gets shared and shared and shared and shared. But generally, your reach is not anywhere near your following size. So it's a way to kind of spin it round and think about it. Because, only 20% of people are opening. But that's a really positive action. To me, that's a bit like that, that valuable DM when someone messages me and goes, tell me about Mastermind. Tell me about a course, because they've taken that step. So the first thing I wanted to really cover, which I feel we've gone on about a bit, but I think it's important, I really do, is this engagement rate, in inverted commas, or this positive action that's taken. Don't think don't think that newsletters are dead, because they really aren't. So we've done that. That is important. But the next thing is to think that with, again, what we've talked about on social, the algorithm decides who to serve our content to, what content is going to serve up to people, when it's going to do it. And whilst we can do things to help stack the odds in our favour by consistency, by posting consistently, posting good quality content, engaging with our followers, etc., 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 we are not in control of that process. But when you have a mailing list, you decide to email that person, and that email, subject to hard bounces, soft bounces, whatever, will get delivered to the place you want it to go to. Whether or not that person consumes it is a different thing, but it is in the best possible position in their inbox waiting to be opened. So that is quite important, because you're not beholden to anything. You can go, I want to tell my audience that I've got a sale on today. I want to share a really cool thing I learned. And you can do it. And within moments, as fast as it takes you to type, that email can be in that inbox waiting to be opened. So you can contact them when you like. The other thing as well is it's in your style. So depending on what mail or email management provider you use, you can have a very bespoke template. It might be you want to go text heavy, which is my next incarnation, spoiler alert, as in rather than a lot of pictures because of the time involved. But obviously if you are a more visual business, if you sell product, you're going to want to have the pictures in. But the great thing is that you can make a bespoke template complete in your brand colours, with your fonts, in a layout that is bespoke to you, that really feels on brand and like it's kind of been lifted from a website almost. It's got that DNA about it. And you can absolutely customise and give people an amazing experience. You can't do that with social media. We fit in with the framework of social. With an email newsletter, with email marketing, you dictate the template, which again allows people to be more on brand. And moving forward, that's more in your style. It could be the way that you want to talk about things. Maybe you want to mix up media, you want to have some images, some video, whatever you want to do, you can weave that in and make that work for you. Another thing as well is there isn't any restrictions. So we know that on Instagram you can't put a link in a caption on a standard post. Well, you can, but it won't work. You have to point people to your link in your bio. On Facebook, there's a kind of general thing about if you put a link in the caption, is the reach affected? Actually, from my research, I wouldn't worry too much about that. There's a lot more other things that would affect the reach, in my opinion, based on what I've read, but that's a different thing. But you do have to work with the criteria of the platform, word limits on Twitter, character limits on Twitter. There's a character limit on Instagram. Most people don't hit it very often, but there is. The format, the way it is, we don't control any of that. Whereas, of course, you go over to your own email newsletter and you can weave the links into the text so it looks, it still reads nicely, but if people click on those hyperlinks, it takes them to your website or it takes them somewhere that you want them to go. And it can give a lot more flexibility and make it look more, you can read it as a piece, but you can also click on those points. So again, there aren't restrictions on the links we put in, the text we use, the fonts we use, the images versus video versus audio. We can do an awful lot inside that without any restriction or any real worries. Of course, we need to be aware of what our reader is looking for. We don't want to just, send them, thousands and thousands and thousands of words, but we have got the ability to if we wanted to. I wouldn't do that. Of course, when someone opens your email as well, you've got their undivided attention. It's down to you to make that interesting and to make those few seconds when they've opened your email count. That's on you, that's not on them. You need to make it count. You're not in competition with anyone else in that second, whereas with social, you always are. People are scrolling through and you are competing with the image below you, the image above you, the video above you, whatever. There's an awful lot going on. Whereas when someone opens your email, you have got their undivided attention. If you don't do it well, you'll lose that, but that's absolutely no different to social. But you've got that opportunity to be their thing for that second or few seconds, or hopefully longer. But it's important, again, to really concentrate on that. That's a really great opportunity. You are the only thing they are concentrating. They've made that action, that conscious decision to click on what you're doing. You haven't appeared by accident. Click on what you're doing, read about you, and you have the opportunity to talk to just them. Moving on, it's owned. The thing with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, Pinterest, whatever social media platform we're talking about, and they are awesome. They are awesome and amazing. But the reason why it worries me when people have their business entirely based on a platform that they don't own is that what happens if there's a blip? When Instagram, was it in 2020? Was it last year? There were a couple of quite significant wobbles. And yeah, they only lasted a few hours. It wasn't like the world ended. But whenever these things happen, I always think, oh God, this is a reminder that we need to focus on our mailing list, because we can still contact people on our mailing lists. But if Instagram did go, if Facebook went, if Twitter went, or if for some reason that absolutely wasn't your fault, you lost your account. We do hear of these horrible things where people get hacked. If you haven't got your two-factor authentication, do that. See this as your sign. But even then, you hear of things that people have, through no fault of their own, and I genuinely mean that because I've looked into quite a few of these, through no fault of their own, they have lost their accounts. And all those followers are potentially gone. They've worked really hard to build up their following, and now they have nothing. Now, if you also have a mailing list and a website and other things as well that you control, it's still going to hurt. Losing that is still going to hurt. I'm not going to lie to you there. But it's not a complete disaster. It's not a complete disaster. If that is the only thing you've got and that goes, you don't have a business. You have to start from nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that's not a strong position to be in as a business owner. You need to have more plans in place there. Even if you're a blogger or an influencer, if you built up that list, yes, if you make all your money through your posts on social, but you've also got that mailing list where you can go into more detail, you can add more value to your audience, that is still something. And it can be a very big something if social goes wonky on you. You've still got that option. And I think it's really important to consider this. And the last one is that you're not beholden to anyone. You can do what you like when you like. Of course, you need to be respectful of your audience, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be. But what I am saying is you don't have to be dictated to by anything, by character count, different kinds of media, or more importantly, what that platform decides to show to your fans and followers. So it's definitely worth paying more attention to your mailing list. I know in Mastermind we've covered this a few times, and we will be covering it again, because it's important to keep looking at how you can get people to, sign up to that list, to be interested in what you're doing. And social is a big part of driving that. Let's be honest here. You know, if you are on social and you've got a big account, you can use that to help people, to encourage people to sign up to your mailing list, because you need to get these people from somewhere. But it's important that you do. It's important that you think about saying to people, sign up to my list, because think of the value you're going to add to them by them signing up to your list. Definitely give it some thought. It doesn't have to be a big flashy thing. And if I know I have seen people say, I've only got X on my list, but the point is they've got a list, and we all start from zero. We all start from zero, and having 2 people is better than having no people, isn't it? So just keep building, and spending a little bit of time focusing in on that list and how you're going to grow it is a real biggie, and one that I'm definitely going to be doing an awful lot more of. There's also huge, there's a huge number of social media providers out there. So whatever your budget, even if your budget is 0, there are email software providers that up to 2,000 people, 2,000 subscribers, it's free. So do that research again, take advantage of these systems. It might mean you want to move when your list gets bigger, but there are systems in place that allow you to grow for free. And there are also providers that don't charge you extra as you grow, which I think is a really admirable thing as well. They get to a point where it's just a set rate. So I think there's a lot of positives going on there too. And of course, for more information on this, on like a deep dive level, when we talk about things like ways to encourage people to sign up and how to build that list, do check out Mastermind. Well, you know what Mastermind is. It's my membership platform. If you pop over to riafreemanpr.co.uk, it is across the top there, and we have an awful lot going on. We have monthly mindset masterclasses, monthly marketing masterclasses, social media training, weekly lives, loads of opportunities, a social media critique for one member that gets shared, and all sorts of fun stuff too. You can always DM me about that, or do have a look on the website for more information. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it, and we will catch up really, really soon. Take care.